for melodic heavy metal. Playing it heavier, louder, raunchier, faster. 99.1 CJAM. This is the Signals of Intuition.
Yeah! 99.1 CJAM-FM. There's brand new Stryper right there, the lead-off track from their awesome new record. That track is Revelation from No More Hell to Pay. And tonight on the Signals of Intuition, we've got a very special guest. We've got the singer of that band. He'll be hanging out for a little bit. So let's get Mr. Michael Sweet on the line right now.
Hello.
Hey, Michael. It's Brandon from CJAM-FM. How you doing?
It's going all right. How are you?
Good, good. You can hear me all right?
Yep.
Awesome. Well, I know you don't have much time to give, so I figure we'll dive right in. What do you say we dive in by talking about your early career and early influences, and then we'll work our way up to what you've got going on now?
Sure. Well, early influences are, pretty much if you have seen the album The Covering, that's a really good start and a good idea of where I come from musically and where the rest of the band comes from musically. Bands like Van Halen and Judas Priest were huge influences of mine. Mm-hmm. Other bands that aren't represented on The Covering are bands like Journey. I'm a big Journey fan. I grew up listening to Journey, and a lot of people seem to think I was influenced by Styx, I guess because there's similarities to my voice and Dennis DeYoung's voice at times, but I wasn't influenced by them at all. I always liked Styx, but never really sung to the records.
Mm-hmm. What musical training do you have? Like, are you formally trained?
Not really. I mean, I grew up in a musical family, so I grew up around singers. I took a few lessons as a group. The band Stryper as a group took a few lessons with a woman by the name of Elizabeth Sabine way back in the 80s, 85. And that's it, man. I mean, I've been singing my whole life, and just, I guess it's in my blood, if you, so to speak.
So how did Stryper come together as a band then? It was obviously you and Robert started, and then how did you add members and that kind of thing in the early days?
Yeah, Rob and I started as a band called, early on, Aftermath. And then we changed the name to Firestorm. And then we changed the name to Rox, R-O-X-X. And then we added Regime. And that's really when we started getting known around town in Hollywood as Rox Regime, and we were a trio and played Gazzari's Troubadour Whiskey. And then eventually we brought Oz into the group, and we were still Rox Regime. And then after Oz, not long after Oz, came Tim. And that's when we all decided that we wanted to devote the band to God, and we started thinking about a new name, because we were getting ready to sign a deal with Enigma, and everybody was on the same page in terms of finding a new name. And eventually we went with Stryper. Everything was already striped and in place, and it just made perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. Now, for your second record, you guys worked with Michael Wagner. What was it like working with him?
Oh, it was great, man. Michael's legendary producer, sweetheart of a guy, amazing to work with, no ego at all, talented guy, just brought the best out in us and with us. Reason why we haven't worked with them since is, he was busy, tied up with other things, and we wound up going with a different producer, and then, our lives just kind of went in different directions.
Yeah.
And then now I'm producing everything since we reformed, and we don't really feel that we need a producer. With all due respect, it almost feels like a waste of money.
Fair enough.
Because we're able to I'm able to produce the albums and get the albums to sound amazing and for a lot less money. We spend 25-30 grand making an album, and if we brought in a producer, we'd spend 100,000 plus easy.
Yeah. Now, obviously, after Soldiers Under Command, you guys had a huge hit with To Hell with the Devil. How do you feel that your lives changed as a result of the newfound success of that album?
Oh, gosh. You mean with the newfound success of To Hell with the Devil, going back in time?
Sorry, yes, yeah.
Yeah, well, it changed immensely. I mean, we went from clubs and theaters to arenas, what felt like overnight. We were just under gold status, and we went to over platinum status. So it was really, truly remarkable. And this was in a short period of time. This was in less than a year. Once that album came out in 86 and going through to 87, we were just like, we toured extensively throughout the year, and we were pretty beat up and exhausted, but at the same time, it was the biggest selling album of our careers, of our lives, and the most successful of the bunch, and really a game changer for us, big time.
So jumping ahead a couple records to Against the Law, what was the reasoning for going more secular on that record? Did you guys want to expand your audience, or were you sick of being labeled as a Christian band, or?
The funny thing is I wouldn't even term it as going more secular, because if you really put that album up against any other album, it really wasn't more secular. Where it was more secular or more rebellious, I think would be a better word, was in our attitudes. Interviews, our faces, the spirit behind the music, making that album. We were definitely living hypocritical lives, and we were a lot more rebellious, and basically a big FU to the church, because we were being shunned by the church for so long, and we just got sick of it and said, you know what, we're done with this. And
really?
And that was our way of basically just rebelling and showing the church, like, hey, we're against your laws. That's what that song's about. That's the whole point of the title, is, don't try to put your laws on us, because we don't follow your laws. We follow God's laws. And it was just a big, no disrespect, but it was a big FU to to all the Christians that were coming against us for years. Jimmy Swaggart was one of them.
Oh, really? So he went after you guys back in the day?
Well, we got saved through Jimmy Swaggart, and then he used to hold our records up on his television, on his broadcast, and say, these guys are of the devil.
Oh, geez.
Don't support him. And he would send whenever we would perform in the South, he would send his people out from Jimmy Swaggart Ministries with bullhorns, and they would protest our shows.
Oh, wow. That's insane.
So that really hurt. I mean, here's the guy that brought us to God, and he's speaking out against us, and we didn't understand it, and it was a hard pill to swallow. And I think that was the domino effect that led to, from that time back in 85 all the way through to 90, and a lot of people just beating us up from the church and stuff. We didn't really know how to handle it. Now we're good. We've learned a lot, and we've grown and matured, and we're in a lot better place now. But I mean, it was a tough time for us. 90 to 92 was really tough.
Do you feel that had an impact on what led to the first dissolution of the band?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that was it. I mean, the whole Against the Law period, and us letting our guard down and walking away from God and being hypocrites. I've said this before, but we would go on stage and tell people, you don't need to drink, you don't need alcohol. And then right after the show, we'd go to the bar and get drunk with everybody. So it was just we were the poster children for hypocrisy. Mm-hmm. Literally, for that. Not the whole time, not from the time we started, just from 90 to 92. We had a really bumpy road and a really tough go during that period. And that led to me certainly leaving the band, absolutely, because I just didn't want it anymore. I wanted to wipe the slate and, get back in line with God and my faith and my family, and put them first, and get out. The only way to do that, I felt at the time, was to leave the band, and I did.
Mm-hmm. And then, so what serves as a catalyst for you guys getting back together in 2003?
It was one of those things where a lot of time had passed, a lot of healing had taken place, and it just felt like, it was the right time to do it, and God's hand was upon it. It wasn't a money thing. We weren't paid millions of dollars to do it. I mean, we just did a celebration tour, we called it, and went out and toured a short little run in 2003, and everything that came out of that leads us to right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, we decided to, not long after the tour, to officially reunite and then go make a record. And we've been going ever since, and it's really cool.
Yeah, well, I've got to say, I mean, I really dug Reborn, even though it was quite a step away from sort of what you guys were known for, the 80s metal sound. And so I guess we'll hit the new record right now. So what sort of was a catalyst for you guys to write sort of a much more 80s, really heavy kind of record?
Well, just real quick, a comment on your comment about Reborn. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of people know this. I don't know if you know it or not, but that was actually a solo record.
Oh, it was?
And I had recorded that on my own at my home studio, and I was shopping that to labels, and I had Big Three, the label Stryper ultimately signed with. I had them ready to sign me. And we went and did a show down in Orlando at Disney World, and I played the album for everybody. And Oz specifically flipped out over it and said, my gosh, this is amazing. This would be great if this was a Stryper album. And that opened the door to us turning it into a Stryper album. But if you were to compare the original solo album with this reborn Stryper album, they're identical.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know
the
that.
only thing we did was re-record the drums. Robert learned the parts exactly. We re-recorded it, and then we added just a few guitars, but it's the same record. And the last thing we did was we added the remake of In God We Trust. But I don't think many people know that, so maybe that's why you like it, you know, because you said it's a little different. Well, it is, because it was a solo record.
Yeah. So again, back to the new record now. So how did you sort of come to sort of write this really heavy, aggressive, but also sort of paying homage to classic Stryper in a sense?
Well, you know what? We just went in and tried to give our all. We always do on every record in terms of the performances and the production and songwriting and all that. And we did the same with this record. We went the extra mile to try to make a great follow-up to Hell with the Devil. So if we could, in a picture-perfect world, release an album after To Hell with the Devil, what would it be? It would be No More Hell to Pay.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's in all areas: the music, the visual, the imagery. I mean, just everything. The flow of the album and the title. And it just so happens that it came out 25 years later. But I feel it's our best album in many ways, and just the continuity of it, and it's just the consistency of it. It's our best, and it's really cool to read the reviews and see that they echo what I'm saying, and everyone seems to agree. So it's really, really awesome.
Michael, I couldn't agree more. I'll tell you, I've had it on repeat for about the last month now.
Well, man, that's amazing. It really is.
Now, how did you guys meet up with Danny? Is it Bernini? Do I have that right? The producer?
Yeah, Danny Bernini. Actually, I produced the record, and Danny's the engineer.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
And yeah, it's okay. And he came from the Hit Factory in New York City, and he is the head engineer now at Spirit House Studios in Northampton, Mass. And we wound up hooking up with Danny, hiring him to engineer the Murder by Pride album. And he was working at Longview Farm, which is the infamous studio out in western part of Massachusetts, and I know Creed recorded there, and the Stones and Aerosmith, and we went out to work there, and he was the engineer, and we just developed a great relationship and hired him, kept him on, and he's been working with us ever since.
Yeah, I've got to say, I mean, the last couple records just sounded phenomenal. He did a great job. How'd you get the guitar tone on No More Hell to Pay?
Pretty much the same way we've always done it. I mean, we preamp whatever we're using as a head with the parametric EQ, and it gives us that notched out, half-cocked, overdriven sound. And we used Mesa Boogie amps on this album, and we also used Splon amps. So we did a track with Mesa and a track with Splon.
Oh, cool. What guitar were you using?
I was using a GMW loaded with Seymour Duncan pickups and a Carvin loaded with bare knuckle pickups.
Oh, very cool.
And then Oz was using GMW guitar loaded with Seymour Duncans and a Jackson, the new, the GJ2 Grover Jackson line loaded with, I believe, Duncans as well.
Oh, nice. So obviously you guys have the new record out. What does the future hold for Stryper?
Well, we got a lot going on. We got the new record out. We just shot a live DVD and an album out at the Whiskey. I'm going to mix that in 2 weeks with Danny. That'll come out next year, probably May or June, if I had to guess. I start in February recording an album with George Lynch, Brian Tishy, and James Lomenzo.
Wow.
And I'm producing that and co-writing that with George. That's going to come out on Frontiers next year as well, probably around July or August, if I had to guess. And then in February, we're going to launch a single and a video from my new solo album, which will come out probably the end of April, beginning of May, along with my book, autobiography. So there's a lot going on next year, and a tour, a world tour with Stryper.
That's unreal. That's crazy. Any chance you guys will hit the Detroit area?
Oh, absolutely. We're going to do Europe, South America, Japan, Korea, and U.S. extensively. So I guarantee you we'll be through Detroit, because we usually come through Detroit.
Oh, that's fantastic. Can't wait. Any chance your next record will be in the vein of No More Hell to Pay?
Yes. it most likely will be. We don't want to do a carbon copy of it. We want it to be its own, but it'll be very similar in the production and the style and the tones and the feel, the energy. Absolutely. It'll be heavy and energetic. We might throw another ballad on there instead of just one, maybe two, add a 13th song. Who knows? We're also planning on doing a covering, too, at some point in the next couple of years.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And doing the second coming. Or maybe a third coming, and hitting the songs on In God We Trust and Against the Law, and a few more from the Yellow and Black Attack.
Oh, that's fantastic. Really looking forward to all the stuff you say you've got coming up. Well, Michael, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Sure.
I know you've got to run, but I want to thank you for hanging out with us for a little bit. So thanks again. I very much appreciate it.
Okay, brother. Thank you, man.
All right. Take it easy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, that was Michael Sweet of Stryper. So what I figure we'll do is we'll spend the rest of the show going back through the Stryper catalog and slowly working our way up to what they've got going on now. So let's kick everything off from their first single they ever released as a band. This is Loud and Clear off the Yellow and Black Attack.